So, TV talk show host Ellen Degeneres recently came out with an on-air apology for the piling accusations made against her about the way she treats people off camera.
Oh boy!
So what are we to make of what Ellen said in her apology? This is my take. So, Ellen Degeneres, she may well be the world's most famous daytime TV talk show host. Her videos have been watched by billions of people all over the world, and the main purpose of her show is to provide light relief and humour to people's lives, with her central message being, quote, be kind to one another. And unless you've been living under a rock for the last few months, which, by the way, some may have voluntarily chosen to do given the state of the world, you will have heard about the series of accusations made against Ellen, which eventually forced the senior management of her show and Ellen herself to respond and apologise. Now, some of the accusations were centred around Ellen's behaviour, and some were about her senior management. There were accusations that she'd send people home for having bad breath or fire someone for leading her the long way to her studio set. The accusations accumulated to such a level that eventually Ellen felt she had to issue an on-air apology. Now, I watched her apology speech, and you can find a link to it in the video description of this video, but I wanted to share with you a few thoughts that I had after watching it, because I think there are some important things that we can take away from this very public saga. Now, in my view, there was something critically missing in her apology speech, and I'm going to come to what that thing was in a second. But before I do so, the first thing I want to say is actually something in Ellen's defence. I have a really hard time with these public pile-ons that we see happening in the media from time to time, where media companies, news agencies, and people on social media decide to pile on in attacking one particular person. Some refer to this as cancel culture, where the aim is to annihilate the person's social life, career, perhaps even their whole public life, which in reality means their entire life, because human beings need to interact with other human beings, as the virus has so tragically taught us. As the Talmud says, the greatest crown of all is the crown of a good name, having a good name, being well respected. And one of the greatest sufferings of all is to lose your good name. It is a very, very deep and severe punishment, even a form of death, to take away someone's good name and public reputation. So we have to be very careful about it. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not saying these accusations are not true, nor am I saying Ellen is some angel. I don't know what is or is not true. I do know that Ellen felt enough was being exposed that she had to come out and apologise. So clearly something was going on. And it's also true that in some cases people can be found to do such terrible things that their removal from being promoted in the public eye may be warranted. But in most cases, I do believe that we're all a mix of good and bad, and humans are complex. Very few people are fully good or entirely bad, and I'm sure Ellen has goodness to her as well. And as a principle, I also think it's fair to say that if someone preaches a message and they don't always live up to that message, that's also okay. No one is perfect, and being a role model isn't about being perfect. It's about striving to grow and better oneself. You know, the Torah is actually the only holy book of any religion that I'm aware of that actually references the flaws of its leaders. Leaders can fall short of their own standards, but I will accept that, of course, if a leader is regularly falling short of the principles they espouse, then some serious reflection and accountability is warranted. So that's the first point I wanted to make. Now I want to talk about her apology speech, and the points I want to make aren't intended to attack Ellen in any way, but I do want to use it to draw some lessons from what she said or didn't say. Because if you read the actual words of her apology, apart from the fact that it was clearly very cleverly written, I can't help but feel that something was missing. I felt that instinctively from the moment I watched it. In her apology, she accepted that her be kind message wasn't always consistent with her behaviour, and she also acknowledged that some felt her work environment had become toxic, and she has, quote, made the necessary changes, referencing the fact that several senior members of her team had been fired. Now, it is true that there were allegations made about other senior people in her management team, but the reason why I found her apology to be lacking is because when it came to her and her actions, she was very vague and non-specific about any of the things that she herself did wrong. She said, quote, sometimes I get sad, I get mad, I get anxious, I get frustrated, I get impatient, and I'm working on all of that. The language used here isn't about how her actions affected others, because there's nothing inherently wrong in being frustrated or anxious or impatient. The issue is how that impacts others. But more crucially, there's no specific reference to anything she did. You know, in Judaism, we're taught that the concept of teshuvah, of apologizing, of making amends, of repairing relationships is actually something that God created as a miraculous tool before he even made the world. It's considered to be a miracle of creation because if you think about it, the act of apologizing is actually quite remarkable in the way it works. You do something wrong, and then the way you resolve it is by simply acknowledging and stating what you just did wrong, and resolving not to do it again. It is literally just by articulating and acknowledging that which you did wrong. Isn't that weird to think? That can allow for healing and rectifying oneself in a relationship. But that's how it works. In Jewish law, the first step in the process of repentance in Judaism is vidui, confessing, articulating what you did. And I'm afraid to say that Ellen's apology video felt somewhat hollow because she said she took responsibility, but she didn't specify what she had done wrong. Now, I'm not going to judge her for the reason why she chose not to specify. Maybe there's too many to mention, maybe she's apologising to people privately, but nevertheless, without articulating exactly what you did wrong, it makes an apology incomplete. Now, before I get to my final point, I'd just like to say this. You'll notice that in the language that I'm using in this video, I'm being careful to make judgments about Ellen. In Judaism, we're encouraged to be very, very careful, even to resist, to refrain from making judgments about anyone, because we don't know the full picture, we don't know the full story. Even to talk about them, we should be very careful. In this case, it's a little bit different because it's a public saga, but in most cases, and certainly in private matters, we're told to be very, very careful about doing this, again, because we just don't know the full picture. And the final takeaway that I think we can learn from this saga is a critical lesson. Regardless of what is and isn't true in this Ellen story, this saga can serve as a reminder to us that the way people act in public and in private are not always the same. In fact, they are often not the same. In our social media age, where we're encouraged to project how good we are and how good we've got it to the world, we are far more tempted to look good as opposed to do good. Looking good and doing good are two very different things. Looking good is easy and makes us feel popular. Being good is hard, and it isn't always instantly rewarding. It's very easy to preach goodness. It's much harder to do goodness, because doing good takes effort. It means putting the priorities of others before yourself. And in the age of Hollywood and celebrities, we fall far too easily into the trap of glorifying stars, thinking they have it all and they're the best, without recognizing that we have absolutely no idea how they behave behind closed doors. As C.S. Lewis said, integrity is what you do even when no one is watching. And again, this isn't being said to make judgments about Ellen. I'm simply reflecting on a general lesson that we can sensitize ourselves to from this whole saga. Perhaps if we always act as if someone is watching us, no matter if we're in public or private, the world would be a better place. And the truth of the matter is, someone is always watching us, and he's rooting for us to become the best person that we can be.
To stay up to date with JTV content, click subscribe here if you're on YouTube and hit the alarm bell. And if you're on Facebook, hit the like button and under following, click see first. If you enjoy watching JTV content and want to help us continue to grow, please consider making a donation to us by clicking here.